The Sherman tank is burning. Normandy, July 19th, 1944. And Corporal James Riley, gunner, 3rd Armoured Division, is crawling out of the hatch. He's alive, barely. Burns on his hands, smoke inhalation. His ears are ringing from the impact. An 88mm round from a German Tiger tank. Punched straight through the front armour, like tissue paper. Killed the driver, killed the assistant driver. Riley and the rest of the crew, they bailed out. And now Riley is lying in a ditch, watching his tank burn, and he's thinking, this is the 3rd Sherman I've been knocked out of. 3rd, in 6 weeks, and every time it's the same. German tank, heavier armour, bigger gun, superior. And the Sherman, it just dies, explodes, burns. And Riley, he calls it, we all call it, a death trap, a rolling coffin. 30 tons of American steel that can't protect you, can't fight German tanks, can only burn. And Riley swears if he survives this war, he'll never forgive the generals, the bureaucrats, who sent American boys to fight in inferior tanks against superior German machines. That's what he believes. July 19th, 1944. But 3 months later, Riley will believe something very different. Because 3 months later, Riley will see something that changes everything. Now, let me tell you about a German tank crew. Same day, July 19th, 1944, Oberfeldwebel Kurt Müller, commander of a Panther tank, Panzer Lehr Division, and Müller's Panther is superior to the Sherman in every way. Better armour, better gun, better optics, and Müller knows it. When he faces Shermans, he wins. Every time. One shot. The Sherman explodes, and Müller's Panther, it takes the hits. 75mm Sherman rounds bounce off, don't penetrate. Müller is safe, protected, superior. But Müller has a problem that Riley doesn't know about, doesn't see. Müller's Panther is almost out of fuel. The fuel trucks didn't arrive. Again. And Müller's ammunition, he has 12 rounds left. 12. Started the day with 60. And resupply? It's not coming. The supply convoy was destroyed by Allied aircraft. And Müller's transmission, it's making a grinding noise. Needs maintenance, needs parts. But the repair unit is somewhere. Nobody knows where. And Müller realizes his superior tank, it doesn't matter, because he can't move. Can't shoot, can't fight, without fuel, without ammunition, without parts. And Riley's Sherman, the death trap, it'll be replaced tomorrow with a new Sherman, fresh from the factory, fully fueled, fully armed, and Riley will climb into it and keep fighting, while Müller, in his superior Panther, sits, immobile, waiting for supplies that never come. That's the story, not about which tank was better, but about which system was better. And the answer, it's not what you think. Let me tell you about the M4 Sherman tank, because to understand this story, you need to understand the Sherman, design finalized 1941, produced 1942 through 1945. Total production, roughly 49,500. 49,000. That's more than all German tank production combined. And the Sherman, it's designed with a philosophy: simplicity, reliability, mass production, ease of maintenance. The Sherman uses a radial aircraft engine, Wright R975, or later twin diesel engines, both reliable, both easy to maintain. The transmission is simple, the suspension is simple, and the armour, it's adequate. Not great, but adequate. 75mm gun. Later, 76mm. Not the best, but good enough. And the design philosophy is, we'll make thousands of them, ship them everywhere, keep them running, and overwhelm the enemy with numbers, with reliability, with logistics. And American tank crews, they hate this philosophy, because it means their tank is not the best. Not individually. A Sherman versus a Tiger, the Tiger wins. every time. Sherman armor, 51 millimeters on the front. Tiger armor, 100 millimeters. Sherman gun, 75 millimeter. Tiger gun, 88 millimeter. The math is brutal. The Tiger can kill a Sherman from 1,500 yards. The Sherman can kill a Tiger from maybe 300 yards if it hits the side or the rear. From the front, good luck. And American tank crews know this. They face Tigers, face Panthers, and they die. And they call the Sherman a death trap, a Ronson, lights first time, every time, like the cigarette lighter. And morale, in some units, it's terrible. Crews refuse to fight, demand better tanks. And the question is, why? Why did America build the Sherman when they knew it was inferior? The answer is, America didn't build the Sherman to win tank duels. America built the Sherman to win the war. And there's a difference. Let me tell you about production, because this is critical. The Sherman is designed, from the beginning, for mass production. The factory, Detroit Tank Arsenal, it's built specifically for Shermans, assembly line production, like cars. And at peak production, 1943, Detroit Tank Arsenal is producing roughly 1,000 Shermans per month. 1,000 per month, one factory. And there are multiple factories. Chrysler, Ford, Fisher Body, Pacific Car and Foundry, all building Shermans. And by the end of the war, America has produced 49,500 Shermans, plus thousands of variants, tank destroyers, recovery vehicles, engineer vehicles, all based on the Sherman chassis, all using Sherman parts, interchangeable, standardized. Germany, by contrast, produces roughly 25,000 tanks total, all types. Panzer III, Panzer IV, Panther, Tiger, and each type, it's different. Different parts, different maintenance, and production numbers, they're low. Panthers, roughly 6,000. Tigers, roughly 1,300. Not enough. And here's the key difference. If a Sherman is destroyed, it's replaced, usually within days, sometimes within hours. Fresh Sherman, from a cargo ship, driven off, fueled, armed, combat ready. If a Panther is destroyed, it's probably not replaced, because there aren't enough Panthers, aren't enough replacements. So German units, they lose a Panther and that's it. They fight with one less tank until the unit is eventually destroyed. Now, let me tell you about Corporal James Riley's experience, because this is illuminating. Riley joins the 3rd Armoured Division, England, April 1944, training for D-Day, and Riley is assigned to a Sherman, and he's disappointed. He's heard about German tanks, Tigers, Panthers, thick armour, powerful guns, and the Sherman, it looks small, thin armour, modest gun. And Riley asks his commander, "Are we really going to fight Tigers in this?" And his commander says, "Yes, but don't worry, we won't fight them alone. We'll fight together. 5 Shermans against 1 Tiger, and we'll win, because we have 5, and they have 1. Riley doesn't find this reassuring. D-Day, June 6th, 1944. Riley lands, Omaha Beach, and his Sherman, it makes it ashore, drives inland. And for the first week, Riley doesn't encounter German tanks, just infantry, fortifications, and the Sherman performs well, reliable, mobile, good infantry support. But then, June 13th, Riley's unit encounters a Tiger. In a hedgerow, ambush, the Tiger fires, knocks out 3 Shermans instantly. Riley's Sherman is hit, glancing blow, damages the track, crew bails out, Tiger withdraws, and Riley, lying in a ditch, realizes, we can't fight this. This is suicide. We're outmatched. That becomes Riley's belief. For weeks, every encounter with German heavy tanks, it's the same. Shermans die, Germans withdraw, and Riley burns through tanks. 1st Sherman, 2nd Sherman, Third Sherman, each one knocked out, each one replaced, and Riley survives. Barely, and he's traumatized, angry. Calls the Sherman a death trap, and he's not alone. Other crews feel the same, and some units, there are reports, in Belton Cooper's book Death Traps, of near mutinies. Crews refusing missions, demanding better tanks, and officers, they try to explain. We're winning, we're advancing, the Sherman is doing its job, but crews don't believe it, because they're the ones dying. Now, let me tell you about the German perspective, because this is critical. Oberfeldwebel Kurt Müller, Panther commander, and Müller's Panther, its superior, technically, better armor, better gun, and in combat, Müller wins, kills Shermans, easily. But Müller's war is different from Riley's. Riley's Sherman gets destroyed. Riley gets a new Sherman, next day. Müller's Panther gets damaged, track thrown, or transmission failure, or engine breakdown, and repairs take weeks, if they happen at all, because German logistics by mid-1944 are collapsing. Fuel is scarce, parts are unavailable, and repair units, they're overwhelmed. So Müller's Panther sits, broken, for days, weeks, while Müller and his crew, they wait and watch American Shermans drive past. Dozens of them, hundreds, all moving, all operational. And Müller realizes, we have better tanks, but they have more, and more. It's winning. Let me tell you about fuel, because this is where German superiority collapses. The Panther tank, it's a fuel hog. Consumption, roughly 1.6 litres per kilometre. On roads. Off-road, it's worse. 2 litres per kilometre, maybe more. And the Panther's fuel capacity, 720 litres. So range, on roads, roughly 450 kilometres. In theory. In practice less. Maybe 200 kilometres. Off-road. And by mid-1944, Germany is running out of fuel. Synthetic fuel production is collapsing, Allied bombing, and fuel, it's rationed, prioritized, and Panther units, they often have, enough fuel for maybe 50 kilometers. Maybe. And then they sit, waiting for fuel trucks, that often don't arrive. Sherman, by contrast, consumption is better, roughly 0.6 litres per kilometre, and fuel, it's abundant. America is producing unlimited fuel, shipping it to Europe in massive quantities, so Sherman units, they always have fuel, always, and this means Shermans move, Panthers sit. Here's a specific example. Operation Cobra, late July 1944, American breakout from Normandy, and German panzer units are ordered to counterattack, stop the Americans, and they try. But most Panther tanks, they can't move. No fuel, or insufficient fuel, so German commanders, they have to choose. Which tanks get fuel, which tanks fight, and the rest, they sit, or they're abandoned, left behind, because there's no fuel to move them. And American forces, advancing, they find Panthers. Dozens of them, abandoned, perfect condition. No damage, just out of fuel. And American tank crews, they're amazed. These are the tanks that killed us, and the Germans just left them because they couldn't move them. Now, let me tell you about maintenance, because this is the other critical difference. The Sherman is designed for easy maintenance. The engine, you can remove it, entire unit in a few hours, with a crane, or even manually. The transmission, accessible, easy to replace. The tracks, simple, and American repair units, they're excellent, well supplied, mobile, and if a Sherman is damaged, it's usually repaired, within days, back in service. The Panther, by contrast, is a maintenance nightmare. The engine, it's complicated, final drive, notorious for failures, requires specialized tools, skilled mechanics, and parts by mid-1944 are scarce, so Panthers break down and stay broken for weeks, and crews they sit frustrated, watching their superior tank immobile, useless. Let me tell you about Clarence Smoyer, Sherman tank commander, 3rd Armored Division, and Smoyer, he's one of the best, survives the entire war, fights from Normandy to Germany. And in a post-war interview, Smoyer describes his feelings about the Sherman. He says, "We hated it. At first, it was a death trap. The Germans had better tanks. We knew it. They knew it. And we died. A lot. But here's the thing. Every time my tank was knocked out, I got a new one. Same day. Next day. And I kept fighting. And I noticed, Germans, they didn't. Their tanks, once they were damaged, they stayed damaged. Or were abandoned. And I started seeing Panthers, Tigers, perfect condition, just sitting by the side of the road, abandoned. And I realized it doesn't matter if your tank is better, if you can't keep it running, can't fuel it, can't repair it. And our Shermans, they kept running. Always. We had fuel, we had parts, we had support. And by the end of the war, I loved my Sherman. Not because it was the best tank, but because it was reliable. And reliability in war, that's everything. That's the shift. That's the revelation. Sherman crews, they start the war thinking, we have inferior tanks. And they end the war thinking, we have the right tanks. Because they see German tanks, superior tanks, abandoned, out of fuel, out of parts. And they realize superiority doesn't matter. Sustainability matters. Now, let me tell you about ammunition. Because this is another factor. Sherman 75mm gun. Later 76mm. And American ammunition, it's standardized, plentiful. Sherman crews carry roughly 75 rounds in the tank, and resupply, it's easy. Ammunition trucks, always available, always stocked. Panther 75mm gun, but longer barrel, high velocity, better penetration. And Panther crews carry roughly 82 rounds. But resupply, it's a problem, because German logistics by 1944 can't keep up. Ammunition convoys, they're attacked by Allied aircraft, and Panther crews, they often have half loads or less, and they run out mid-battle. And when you run out of ammunition, your superior gun is useless. You're defenseless. Let me tell you about the Battle of Aracourt, September 1944, Lorraine, and German forces, including Panther and Panzer IV units, attack American positions, 4th Armored Division, Shermans, and the battle lasts roughly 10 days. And on paper, Germans should win. They have Panthers, superior tanks. But they'd lose, badly. Americans destroy roughly 285 German tanks. Germans destroy roughly 48 Shermans. And here's why. American Shermans had fuel, had ammunition, had parts. German Panthers, they ran out of fuel, ran out of ammunition, broke down, and were destroyed or abandoned. And American tank crews fighting at Aracourt, they start to understand, our tanks aren't death traps. The German system is the death trap, superior tanks. That can't fight, because logistics failed. Now, here's the irony. The German tanks, Panthers, Tigers, they're over-engineered, too complex, too heavy, too expensive. The Panther weighs 45 tons. Sherman weighs 30 tons. That extra weight, it stresses the transmission, stresses the engine, stresses the suspension, and Panthers break down constantly. Final drive failures, transmission failures, engine fires. And German crews, they spend more time repairing their tanks than fighting in them. Sherman crews, by contrast, their tanks just work. Reliable, simple. And when something breaks, it's fixed, quickly, with parts that are available, with mechanics who know the system. Let me tell you about Belton Cooper, American maintenance officer, 3rd Armored Division. And Cooper, he wrote a book, Death Traps, about his experience, and Cooper's thesis is the Sherman was a death trap, inferior to German tanks, got American boys killed unnecessarily. And Cooper's book, it's influential, shapes public perception for decades. But here's what Cooper missed. Cooper focused on tank versus tank combat, one-on-one, and yes, Sherman versus Panther, the Panther wins. But war isn't one-on-one combat. War is logistics, production, sustainability. And in those metrics, the Sherman wins, overwhelmingly. And Cooper, as a maintenance officer, he saw destroyed Shermans, every day, hundreds of them, and it traumatized him, made him believe the Sherman was terrible. But what Cooper didn't see or didn't emphasize is that those Shermans were replaced instantly and kept fighting, while German tanks, once destroyed, were gone forever. Now, let me tell you about crew survival, because this is important. Sherman crews, when their tank was hit, had a decent chance of survival. The Sherman had good crew layout, good escape hatches, and American tank crews, they trained for bailout procedures, practiced, and survival rates for Sherman crews were roughly 80%. 80%. That means if your Sherman was hit, you probably survived, got out, and climbed into another Sherman. Next day, German tank crews in Panthers and Tigers, survival rates were similar, maybe slightly better, because of thicker armor. But here's the difference. If a German crew survived, they often didn't get another tank, because there were no replacements. So surviving German crews, they were reassigned to infantry, or to other units, or they sat, waiting, while Sherman crews, they kept fighting in new tanks, and this created experience. Sherman crews that survived, they got better, learned tactics, learned how to fight Panthers, how to use terrain, how to coordinate, and by late 1944, experienced Sherman crews were deadly because they knew how to exploit Panther weaknesses, side armor, rear armor, and they worked together. 5 Shermans coordinated against 1 Panther, and they won. Let me tell you about the German crew perspective, because this is heartbreaking. German Panther crews, they started the war believing, we have the best tanks, we're invincible. And initially they were right. Panthers dominated, killed Shermans easily. But by late 1944, Panther crews are demoralized, frustrated, because their superior tanks, they don't matter. They're out of fuel, out of ammunition, broken down. And American Shermans, they're everywhere. Dozens of them, hundreds. And German crews realize we're losing. Not because our tanks are bad, but because we can't support them, can't sustain them. And it's crushing. You have the best tank in the world, and it's useless because the system failed. Here's a captured German tanker's testimony from American intelligence files, declassified. The tanker, his name was Hans Becker, said, "Our Panther was superior. No question. Better armor, better gun. But it didn't matter. We had no fuel, no ammunition. And when the Panther broke down, which it did, constantly, we couldn't fix it. No parts, no tools. And we'd sit, for days, watching American Shermans drive past, and we couldn't do anything. And eventually, we abandoned our Panther. Perfect tank, just no fuel, and we walked back to Germany, on foot. And I thought, what was the point? We had the best tank, and we lost, because logistics failed us. That's the German tragedy, superior technology, defeated by logistics failure. And American Sherman crews, they witnessed this, saw abandoned Panthers, Tigers, and realized our death trap is actually the winning design. Because it works, reliably, sustainably, and that's what matters. Now, let me tell you about the final months, December 1944 through May 1945. Germany is collapsing, and German tank units, they're shadows. Most Panthers, most Tigers, they're abandoned, out of fuel or destroyed. And the few that remain, they fight desperately, but they're isolated, unsupported. And American Shermans, they advance. Overwhelming numbers, unlimited fuel, unlimited parts. And Sherman crews, by this point, they've learned how to fight German tanks, learned tactics, and they're winning. Not because the Sherman is suddenly better, but because American logistics are better, overwhelmingly better, and German logistics are non-existent. Let me tell you about Corporal James Riley, again, because his story completes. November 1944, Riley's unit is advancing through Germany, and they come across a German position, abandoned, and Riley, he walks through it, sees Panthers, 5 of them, perfect condition, no damage, just sitting, out of fuel. And Riley, he climbs into one, sits in the commander's seat, looks at the controls, the gun, the optics, and he realizes this is the tank that killed me. 3 times, this superior tank, and now it's abandoned, useless, because the Germans couldn't fuel it, couldn't support it. And Riley climbs out, walks back to his Sherman, and he pats it. This death trap. And he thinks, maybe it's not a death trap after all. Maybe it's the tank that won the war because it kept running when everything else stopped. That's the lesson. Technical superiority doesn't win wars. Logistics wins wars. Reliability wins wars. Sustainability wins wars. The Sherman wasn't the best tank, individually, but it was the best system, and that's what mattered. American tank crews, they called it a death trap, until they saw German logistics, saw superior tanks, abandoned, saw German crews walking, starving, defeated, not by better tanks, but by better systems. And Sherman crews realized, we have the right tank. Not because it's invincible, but because it's sustainable. And that's the truth, the hidden truth that Sherman crews learned the hard way, through burning tanks, through losses, through pain. But eventually they learned, and they won.